July 28, 1995. A South Carolina jury decides not to sentence Susan Smith to death. In that moment, they believe they are choosing mercy over brutality. They believe they are sparing a life. But 3 decades later, prison staff say Susan Smith has become one of the most difficult inmates they have ever dealt with. And the uncomfortable question now being asked is whether those jurors actually saved her life, or sentenced her to something far more punishing than execution. This case exploded back into public attention in November 2024, when Smith faced her first parole hearing after spending 30 years behind bars. What happened in that hearing room, and what followed afterward, exposes a harsh truth about life imprisonment that most people never fully consider. By the end of this video, you may find yourself questioning which punishment is truly worse. Because what you are about to hear is what 3 decades inside a concrete cage does to a human being. October 25, 1994. Susan Smith straps her 2 young sons into their car seats. Michael is just 3 years old. Alexander is only 14 months old. She drives them to John D. Long Lake in Union County, South Carolina. Once positioned at the boat ramp, she releases the parking brake. The car slowly rolls forward into the water. Over the next 6 minutes, the vehicle fills, sinks, and disappears beneath the surface. Inside, both boys remain strapped into their seats, trapped in darkness, drowning. Susan Smith does not scream for help. She does not jump in after them. Instead, she runs to a nearby house and reports a carjacking. She claims a black man wearing a toboggan hat stole her car with her children still inside. For the next 9 days, Susan Smith appears on television crying uncontrollably, begging for her babies to be returned. Search teams flood the area. Law enforcement officers stop and question black men across the region, hunting for a suspect who never existed. The story grips the nation. But on November 3, 1994, the truth finally comes out. Susan Smith confesses there was no carjacking. She admits she murdered her own children. Prosecutors later argue she committed the crime because the man she was dating did not want children interfering with their relationship. Faced with that choice, she chose him over her sons. The trial is swift. It lasts less than a week. The jury deliberates for just 2.5 hours before returning guilty verdicts. Then comes sentencing. Prosecutor Tommy Pope argues relentlessly for the death penalty. He tells jurors that if a black man had committed this crime, death would be expected. If the children's father had done it, death would be expected. Yet despite the brutality, the jury votes for life imprisonment instead of execution. What those jurors did not know was a crucial legal detail. Under South Carolina law at the time, anyone convicted before January 1996 became eligible for parole after serving 30 years. Susan Smith narrowly qualified, missing the cutoff by mere months. The judge instructed jurors to interpret life in its plain and ordinary meaning. They believed she would die in prison. They were wrong. That misunderstanding would shape the next 3 decades of her existence. Susan Smith begins serving her sentence at Camille Griffin Graham Correctional Institution. Within 5 years, her incarceration spirals into chaos. In August 2000, Smith admits to having sexual encounters with a 50-year-old prison guard named Houston Cagle on prison grounds. Cagle pleads guilty and serves 3 months in jail. Just 1 year later, Captain Alfred Rowe confesses to having sex with Smith and receives 5 years of probation. A woman convicted of murdering her children has manipulated the very guards assigned to supervise her. This is not romance. It is control. It is the last form of power available to her. As a result of these scandals, Smith is transferred to Leith Correctional Institution in Greenwood County, where she remains more than 24 years later. Prison officials implement strict protocols. Smith is never allowed to be alone with male staff. Transportation requires multiple guards. Even behind bars, she is considered a risk. Between 2010 and 2017, her disciplinary record grows darker. In March and April 2010, she is cited for unauthorized drugs and self-mutilation. Additional drug violations follow in the years that come. A former cellmate later describes watching Smith snort drugs, swallow them, inject them. This is not recreational use. This is someone trying to escape her own mind. Former Captain Alfred Rowe claims Smith's substance abuse worsened after her transfers, when she could no longer receive the male attention she once relied on. According to him, drugs replaced that need. Over the years, Smith is repeatedly moved for undisclosed medical reasons, back to Graham Correctional in 2004, 2013, and 2021. She is transported to Kirkland Correctional Institution, a male facility, multiple times between 2008 and 2024. The records do not explain why, but they paint a picture of ongoing physical and psychological deterioration. In August 2024, just 3 months before her first parole hearing, Smith is caught communicating with a documentary filmmaker about interviews, filming, and payment. Inmates are prohibited from profiting from their crimes. She loses phone, tablet, and canteen privileges for 90 days. The timing is critical. Prison sources say she had been carefully following every rule to improve her parole chances. Yet she risks everything to sell her story. November 20th, 2024. Exactly 30 years later, Susan Smith appears before the parole board via video conference. She begins to speak, apologizes, and then breaks down crying. She says she is deeply sorry. She claims she has found God and that God has forgiven her. She asks the board to show her the same mercy. Sitting across from them is her ex-husband, David Smith. Fighting emotion, he tells the board that Susan had free choice that night. This was not an accident. She permanently destroyed his life. He asks them to deny parole now and forever. He promises to attend every hearing to ensure his sons are never forgotten. Prosecutor Tommy Pope reminds the board of Smith's manipulative history and rule violations. Board members question her about the racial hoax that wasted countless resources. She says she was scared and did not know how to tell the truth. The decision is unanimous. Parole denied. According to staff at Leith Correctional Institution, everything changed after that denial. When Smith believed release was possible, she was cooperative, polite, and compliant. After parole was denied, that behavior vanished overnight. Staff describe her as rude, hostile, and difficult. The mask came off. The years of rule following were not rehabilitation. They were performance. Manipulation. Once hope disappeared, her true disposition surfaced. Smith now wakes each day in Dorm C1, Room 0103. Leith Correctional's 39-acre compound is her entire universe. She works assigned jobs, eats on schedule, and follows strict routines. Her phone calls are monitored. Her mail is screened. She has no privacy, no autonomy, no meaningful control over her life. She has earned no educational credits in 30 years. She has not rebuilt herself. She has merely existed while the outside world moved on. David Smith remarried. Technology advanced. Society evolved. Susan Smith remained frozen in time. The cruelest part of her sentence is what comes next. She can apply for parole again in November 2026, and every 2 years after that. But South Carolina grants parole in only about 8% of cases, far fewer for violent offenders. David Smith has vowed to attend every hearing. So the cycle continues. Hope. Denial. Return to the cell. Again and again. This is not hope. It is psychological torture disguised as mercy. Unlike death row inmates who know how their story ends, Susan Smith lives with false hope. She can imagine freedom. Picture life outside. Convince herself that next time might be different. But that hope is almost certainly an illusion. A coping mechanism. She is 53 years old now. Convicted at 23. She has spent more of her adult life incarcerated than free. If she lives into her 70s or 80s, she will have spent half a century behind bars. Her deterioration after parole denial reveals the damage inflicted by this sentence. For decades, she maintained control because release seemed possible. Once that illusion collapsed, what remained was bitterness, rage, and decay. The jurors believed life imprisonment would allow reflection and remorse. Instead, they sentenced her to decades of being known solely as the woman who drowned her children. Many argue life imprisonment is more humane than execution. They say death is too easy. But after witnessing what 30 years has done to Susan Smith, the question becomes unavoidable. Death row brings finality. Life imprisonment brings endless repetition. A slow erosion of identity. A different kind of death. Slower. More prolonged. Stretched across decades. As of December 2025, Susan Smith remains at Leith Correctional Institution, working as a ward keeper assistant. No further disciplinary reports since August 2024. But according to staff, her behavior has continued to deteriorate. Her next parole hearing is November 2026. And then again. And again. Concrete walls. Routine days. Endless waiting. So ask yourself, after seeing what life imprisonment truly looks like, do you still believe it is more humane than death? Or is it something far more cruel?